Maybe that's Herb.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 25th RNCI Red Nation International Film Festival. This is our Indigenous Filmmakers Lounge. And before we introduce the Spotlight film and our director, I'd like to talk to you about what's happening. We're in day 23 out of 30. And it's been an extraordinary experience to have the festival run for 30 days. We have 105 films. So this is the holiday weekend. So binge, and watch the native narrative at rednationff.com. Also, we have 35 films directed by women. We have 73 documentaries. We have 12 student films and 10 experimental. I'd suggest that, while you're having your Thanksgiving dinner, to binge on all these beautiful films that we have to offer. And November 29th is our Red Nation award ceremony. And it's going to be amazing. We have VIP tickets right now. It's limited seating. So I'd suggest you get a ticket and join us. We have the VIP sitting on this virtual landscape is going to be its own room. So we'll be able to pan over on everybody in that room and hear how you're talking about the nominees and the winners. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very exciting. So I'd suggest you get your ticket now at rednationff.com because it is limited seating. And then on the 30th, we're going to conclude with our signature event, which is our Red Nation concert series. It's a fundraiser and it's artists in solidarity in creating systemic change through music, film, and media. And so we have Joe Walsh, Jennifer Warrens, Ronnie Blakely, Joanne Shenandoah, Corey Morton, Hook Herrera, and the roster of musicians that are coming together to celebrate our 25th anniversary is extraordinary. So that's free, it's donation based, it's a fundraiser, so get in while you can and support the native narrative. Okay, now we're gonna spotlight on our film and our guests. So I'd like to help me welcome the director. I want to say George, but it's not George. It's Mr. Bowie. That's what I want to say. I'll just say Mr. Bowie. There's a big thing in the office here where my pronouncing is just really not the best. So, but the film that we're spotlighting on is really extraordinary. It's River of Forgiveness. But before River of Forgiveness, it's, Mr. Bowie, can you introduce the film, the correct title of it, the naming?
Yeah, it's called Nahanni.
Nahanni, River of Forgiveness.
Yeah.
So everyone help me welcome the director of Nahanni, River of Forgiveness, Mr. Bowie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Great to be here. I'm glad we've got, there's three of us here that were all part of this film. So, and I think there is actually somebody else, and it might be Herb Norwegian. And I see a phone on my gallery view,
yes,
but it has a red mark through it.
Yes, I've muted him because he's in a location that would be very distracting.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it'll be way too distracting unless he can go into an isolated area where we can hear what he's saying. Hear what he's saying.
Okay.
So I'd like to introduce our other guests, Lori Ann. Hi, Lori Ann.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to introduce Marcel. Oh gosh. Can you please say your last name?
Cholo.
How do you say it?
Cholo, C-H-O-L-O, Cholo.
Cholo. Well, that's Latin. Right?
Well, in my language, it could Yeah, it can mean many things depending on how you say it. It could be bear fat, it could be many quills, it could be, yeah.
Wow. That's, well, okay, well, we're going to go into that. So my first question is to Mr. Bowie. Mr. Bowie, how did you, what was the inspiration behind the making of your film?
A long time ago, 15 years, I was making a film with the Dene about the Mackenzie Valley pipeline. And in the course of making that film, I met Herb Norwegian at the annual assembly of the Decho Dene First Nations. And Herb, one night, that's Herb Norwegian, and one night we were sitting around and he told me the story of his ancestors who used to go up to the headwaters of the Nahanni River in the fall and hunt and fish and trap all winter. And then in the spring, when they had to get back down to the trading posts in the valley, they would build a moose skin boat. They could be people up and down the Mackenzie Valley, all the tributaries, they were building moose skin boats in the springtime and taking their furs and other trading goods down to the Mackenzie River. And so he said he wanted to do this again. And he asked me if I thought it might make a good documentary. And I said, yes, I thought it would. And, it took us 15 years to actually get it made.
Wow. Yeah. Sometimes, making any film takes forever. I know I've been working on a few that are still in the making, pre-production, but it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
really hard.
yeah, because when you, I know as a filmmaker, when you have a vision and you start the process of development, that film from beginning to end lives with you, in your psyche and your spirit, everything forever. So and there's a process. So when we take on a film and we take on a vision, it affects us, right? As the creator and the filmmaker. How is this, Mr. Bowie, had an impact in your personal life?
Well, it's had a huge impact, and I think we finished shooting in 2018, and we finished the editing in 2019, and I think about it almost often. Very, I was thinking about it this morning when I woke up in bed, and I noticed that I was thinking about it, and I said, man, this just keeps staying with me. Yeah. So that's certainly, one concrete example of how it just it's right through me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why for just in relation to this, that's why I'm really picky about what film I take a hold of, right? Because it stays with us and we live with it in our psyche forever. So it's and everyone that we work with, right? Everyone that's involved with the project. Lori, can you share your experience of working with Mr. Bowie?
It was really good working with him. He reached out to me when I was working with my band, and him and Caroline actually reached out to me, and I was very hesitant about it because it was for 6 weeks, and I went and talked with my grandma and my parents, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And my grandma was like, you've never been on this river. Your grandpa used to go up on that river, and so has your late uncle and all of your family. And so she's like, just do it. Like it's just a summer. And then right then and there, I got a hold of them, and I was like, yeah, I'll go for this opportunity because it's only once in a lifetime, right? So right. I reached out and I accepted their invitation to come and join them with the crew, and it was so fantastic. But once the cameras started coming out, they're like, Jeff was like, "Oh, just, you know, be you, it's okay, just never mind the camera." And it was kind of hard at first because you're not used to having cameras in front of your face, or like trying to catch, you know, what they have in their vision. So it was really hard not to look at the cameras directly. They're like, don't talk to me as if like the camera's not here. So it was kind of hard to get used to at first, but then after that, it was just like, I don't even notice them after a couple of weeks on the river with them.
Well, I bet, yeah, that sounds really exciting for you. So this was your first film then? Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it was very exciting. I never thought it would just blow up the way it did. I just thought like, oh, it's gonna show a couple times. That's about it. And then next thing you know, like it's on the documentary channel, and a lot of people reached out to me and was like, wow, that was such a beautiful film. I've cried to it. I've like, you know, they had so much feelings towards this documentary, and I didn't realize like how it really touched a lot of people. And I'm so glad that a lot of people can relate to a lot of the traumas and, you know, everything that they've gone through. So I'm just really glad that they got to watch the film and just, you know, kind of let go and forgive whatever trauma or troubles that they had in their past.
that's interesting that you brought that up, because the conversation that we had before this one was all about letting go of the past. And, you know, we didn't use the word forgiveness, but I love the word forgiveness, because that's really where the healing happens. And there's a process of forgiving where it's just intellectual, like you just say it, okay, I forgive you. But there's so many layers upon layers of that process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how old are you, Lori, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 25 right now. In a couple days, I'm going to be turning 26.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. And where are you from?
I'm from Nahanni, so it was a really great way for me just to be up in the country, because when I was going to school in the community, we did a lot of fundraising to do a couple trips down the river, but my mom and my grandma, they were like, no, like you're too young to be going on that strong river yet. And the last trip that they did, I was 14, and no other teachers or any other school that I have attended never did trips down the Nahanni River, because it started to get too expensive. So I worked with Parks Canada, and that helped me be in the parks and stuff, but I never got to go down the Nahanni River. And so when this opportunity came up, I was like, this is my opportunity to go down the river. Like, even, and it was so crazy and it was so beautiful. Like, I never thought that you've been to cities and stuff like that, like you felt small because of the towers, but I've never felt that small because of the mountains. They were so, like, I never imagined in my life that they were actually that high, and it was just a beautiful scenery, and it was really nice out there. I enjoyed every minute of it, except for when it was raining.
Yeah. So, Mr. Bowie, instead of me reading, the synopsis of this film, I'd love for you to share with the audience what your film is about.
It's about 12 Dene of all ages, and men and women, going to the up about a 5-day paddle above Virginia Falls, which is one of the main fantastic features of the Nahanni River. Going up there to a place called Bunny Bar, which is a gravel bar where planes could land, because the only way you can get in there is by plane. And there they built a 36-foot moose skin boat. And when you do something like that, not everything goes right all the time. So that's there in the film when you watch it. So and basically they build the moose skin boat, they put it in the water, and they take it down the Nahanni River through various trials and tribulations, and to seeing various amazing sights. The river is noted for having, after Virginia Falls, there's a series of 4 canyons, and the walls are like 1 kilometer high of these canyons. It's known in Canada as Canada's Grand Canyon, and so they take it took 5 weeks, and they take it all the way back down to Fort Simpson on the Mackenzie River. So it was about a 500-kilometer paddle.
Well, I encourage our audience out there, and for all of you that will view this after for the replay, to visit rednationff.com so you can see Nahanni River of Forgiveness. Okay, I'd like to go to Marcel. Marcel?
Yes.
Okay, I want to get into your last name. So I want to touch on that for a minute. Can you, where does your name come from?
My name is a Dene name. It's Cholo. And depending how you say it, it could mean many things. Cho means big, so many, or if you say it really short and high, cho, it means quills, and so means many. So many quills, or you could, depending if you say sa, so. Oh, sorry, my battery's dying. It means bear fat. Depending on how you say it, our language, like my mom, she says it's a really frustrating language because depending on how you say it, if there's you say it a certain way, it can mean a totally different thing. And she had a hard time with her father, my grandfather, learning the language because she went to residential school. When she came back, she had a really tough time to, I guess, integrate back into traditional life. Because, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So where are you located right now, Marcel?
Well, right now I'm in Golden, BC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my father-in-law's house here. I'm in the sunroom here. And I'm in kind of lockdown here, and my mom's here as well. She's just in the other room by the stove warming up. Yeah, my family's here, and yeah, I live down here now. I used to work in Nahanni with Parks Canada in my hometown, and then I moved down here with my wife and my child, and I work down here, and my wife. I work down here in Parks Canada, just west of Lake Louise, and my wife here, my family.
So how did you get involved with Mr. Bowie's film?
Oh, that was really interesting. Well, first of all, Herb's my Grand Chief. We go back a long ways. I went hunting up in Nahanni with Herb in Dead Man Valley, where my family's from. He actually called me up, and Jeff called me up and asked about, what do you think about this film we're going to do, and if you want to come join us. And I had a lot of trepidation because I worked in that park for 13 years, and I know the rapids, and I flipped my canoe in Fourth Canyon and Class 3 water. I know how scary that is. So, so I had a lot of safety issues, and talked to Jeff about it. And then with springtime and the flood, because the flood does a lot of sticks coming down and everything. So everything's time dependent and temporal with the weather, and yeah, you got to listen to the land and move with the rhythms of the land.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they put a bug in my ear and called me back, and then I joined. I was honored and privileged to join. Not only to be a part of this film, but actually to go down my traditional area and travel where my ancestors live and honor them by my presence and moving through the area. And yeah, and sharing that with everybody else in Canada, the world, actually, now, I think.
Yeah. So, Mr. Bowie, I hear that, like, you know, it's very exciting to be on the river, but it's also, it can be dangerous. What was the insurance policy like? I'm just, I mean, I was like, how did you get this? How did you get the green light to do this?
Well, it's, you know, it was probably one of the easiest films to, well, in a way, it was one of the easiest films to finance. From the television industry, it was the easiest film to finance.
Wow.
They, I don't know if you know about the Hot Docs Festival. It's in Toronto.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, they have a pitch forum, and you know, and the film was selected to be at the pitch forum.
Oh, fantastic.
And so there's only, I think there were 19 films. I think it was the only Canadian film in the pitch forum. And Herb Norwegian came from Fort Simpson and joined us at the pitch. And I think that really helped. And so for in large part, the film was easy to finance. The only hard part is we had to do quite a bit of crowdfunding so we could finance the expenses for the Dene, because the television industry, you know, for documentary, they said, well, we don't put on events, we document events. And so that meant that I couldn't put in the budget the costs for the Dene. And so that sent us on quite an intense project to crowdfund enough money so everybody could get paid.
Wow. And so what I'm gonna ask each one of you, and I wish that you're who's the number, because I don't see the name who's joined us.
That's Herb Norwegian.
Herb, and what
it's his idea. This film was his, basically.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Herb, I'm going to unmute you, and hopefully you're in a safe location. Let's see. He's being asked to unmute. I'm unmuting. Unmute audio. Okay. There we no.
Oh, you had it there for a second.
Yeah, and then it went away. Okay, let's just see. Why is this not?
Got it. Ooh, you had it again.
There? Do we have it?
No, it's not. You had it for a second, and then again, it's red. Here, got it.
There. Okay.
Are you there?
We're
Hello?
back. Technical difficulties in the land of the Zoom, in the Zoom world. Hi,
Oh, are
Herb.
we there?
Well, yes, welcome. Welcome to this Indigenous Filmmakers Lounge.
Hey, good stuff there.
Yeah. So I'd love to ask you, how did you come up with this wild idea to put a bunch of people down a river, a dangerous river? No.
Well, let me put it this way. These wild ideas have been coming up since I was a kid. And I guess that's what brought me into working for the Dene for so many years, for almost 40 years. And the Mochen boat was just one of the ideas that came to me. And it came to me through a number of different ways. One of them, I had seen an earlier version of it done back about 20 years earlier. And I traveled into the Great Valley of the Dene down to Mackenzie, and I saw a group of people that had put a smaller version of a boat together. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is great. So from there, just by sitting down with elders around campfires and talking about things that we need to do to explain to the world who we are, to show the kind of work that we can actually do to get ourselves, moving around to different parts of the country. And doing that, there's a number of different stories that are attached to it. So, being an old CBC national reporter with radio, where I was able to then come up with ways on how to approach this and radio has a certain way of capturing stories, and television had also its own ways. And so I combined it and thought that, well, here's a good time to do some television. And this time it was going, instead of doing just straight microphones, it was going to be the cameras that actually told the story and the facial expressions of the people, and the crackling fire, the coals are rolling around in the fireplace, the rolling water, the sound of the canyons roaring, and it was just a mixture of combinations. And I thought about that, and I said, well, God, this is going to make a good sound feature, so let's do it. So we were able to then talk to a number of people, and Jeff Bowie happened to be at one of our assemblies, and I saw his work with the cameras that he was using, and I talked to him about the idea and said, well, this is the story. This is how our people lived about over 150 years ago. And the last moose-skin boat of that magnitude had traveled down this incredible river probably about over 100 years ago. And people, the elders had talked about that when they were children. But so on and on we talked, and I bounced it off Jeff, and he got all giggly and he got squirrely, and then he jumped up and he said, yes, it sounds like an exciting story. Wow. So anyways, we leave. And it wasn't too long afterwards that he gives me a call, and he says his people liked the idea, and he says, so he started roaming around asking people if they were interested in the story. And of course, then I came on board, and the whole thing just took off on its own. It had its life on its own, and it just came right down to the wire where we started filming, and we're actually stitching this moose hide together, and we were just cruising down this incredible torrential river with canyons, and so that's basically how it happened.
Wow, yeah. And I know your name is Jeff. I'm going to continue with Mr. Bowie for obvious reasons now. How'd you come up with your name, actually?
Oh, I come from a long line of Vikings and Norsemen, probably back from in Norway, back in those countries. And my name came about as a result of my great-great-grandfather, who was the son of a Norwegian that came through the valley here back in the late 1700s, ended up here in Fort Simpson with a Dene woman, and they had a child, and then the old man takes off up the Mackenzie River to a place where they're actually hauling material back and forth by boats, and he died. He died the way up there, and the mom had ended up by herself as a widower, and she had a little 3-year-old boy. And the 3-year-old boy was, they traveled in the whole valley here. And then the mom dies. This is around the Spanish flu time. She passes on. And so all of a sudden now, the young boy's by himself, and his uncle takes him on. His uncle, a great leader, takes him on and taught him everything about the bush. And he was a half-breed young kid, and all the young Dene were all dark people, and they just really thought he was an incredible little guy, and he grew up amongst them. And as he was growing up in his teen years, the missionaries, the priests, were great at just colonizing people and, driving the fear of God into people. I mean, this is the kind of thing that happened to our people over the years, and here they came into the community and started registering people. They started giving them names, and they didn't like the Dene names that they had, but they gave them English names. And my great-great-grandfather, his last name was Tilo. The priest didn't like that. They said, no, that's not good. So what we're going to do is we'll give you a name. You come from Norway, so we're going to give you the name Norwegian. And that's how the name came about.
Okay. So I'm going to redirect. Thank you. I'm going to redirect the question. Mr. Bowie.
Yes. My last name is Scottish.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it goes back. I think goes back to the MacDonald clan in Scotland.
yeah. So are you related? No, I'm just teasing.
David,
Okay.
yeah, David was
Yeah.
he's a distant relative,
Yeah,
very distant.
yeah. Well, so moving on, let's go back to the film. Okay, so I'd like to know, Mr. Bowie, because we're going to have to wrap this up in a few minutes, couple minutes. What was your aha moment while you were making this film? It could be a challenging moment, it could be a funny, it could be spiritual, whatever. But what was that aha moment that you had?
I think it was an oh no moment. And that's when we made it to Virginia Falls, and then there was a spectacular scene where a helicopter lifted up the moose skin boat and took it about 5 miles downstream to a place called Marengo Creek. And that was thrilling. And then the rest of us got in rafts. Well, we had to do the portage the normal way, which was a lot of work and took time. And we got in rafts and really enjoyed going down that 5 miles to get to Marengo Creek. But then when we got there, we found that the moose skin boat, the water level had gone way down. The moose skin boat was high and dry, and it had irreparable holes in the hides.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
that was the oh no moment.
Yeah.
Didn't know if the film would continue or if it was just over,
Yeah.
and what we would do. So it was
That was challenging.
it was challenging. It was a tough 24 hours, and then
Right.
you know, the next day, Herb Norwegian showed up in his trusty horse, but it was a jet boat, and he found a way forward for all of us.
Fantastic. So Lori, what was your aha moment making the film? Being in the film?
Oh my gosh. I think it was in the springtime when Jeff actually came in with Parks Canada, and we had a big lunch in for the community to actually screen it. And it was going to be the first time I was going to see the film, like with all of us. And I was, just after like living through it and actually like processing that we were on the river for so long, all of us together, and then having my community come together to watch this. And I remember I was in with my grandma and my mom and my boyfriend at the table, and I was really scared at first. I was like, I don't want to see how I look, like, we were out in the bush for so long. But then my grandma, she just looked at me, and then that's when I was like, she is very proud of me. She is very happy that I did this, and she gave me such a big hug. And when we got to her house, she was talking about my like grandpa, and then she was like, oh, like they were with you on that river, they would have been so proud of you. And then she started to like kind of tear up, and I could hear the cracking in her voice. It's like, okay, like, don't cry, like I'm gonna cry. She's like, I'm very proud of you too. And she was like, I know must have been really hard on your hands, and but she's like, but you did it, and the boat brought you home. And then it was just like, in that moment, I was like, okay, like that's true. Like, we were on the river together for so long, and some of us like were just tired by the mid of the whole thing. But then I I just kept thinking like it's going to be so worth it after we come out of this, and then have Jeff and his team to like put it all together, and boom, it just came up so beautiful. And it was so like, I was so starstruck with how it came together so well, and I was like, wow, like I can't believe I actually did that.
So, Mr. Bowie, we're gonna wrap this up, and I'd like to know if you could share with the audience what you would share your experience, strength, and hope to a filmmaker that may be up and coming, or a filmmaker just in general, of your an inspiring message to encourage filmmakers.
I guess it's find a subject that you think you can believe in and that's worthwhile, and then once you are sure of that, then just give it your all. That I know I can remember the position I was in, where I'd finished something and I was trying to think of what else to do, and I guess I'd remembered my conversation with Herb Norwegian, which was by then 7 years past, and I thought, I think that's the best project that I could possibly get involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called him up again and said, "Yeah, you think that we could still do that?" And once I made that my mind up, then I had the determination to do it, and God knows you need determination.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to encourage everyone that this is, the last week of the 25th RNCI Red Nation International Film Festival. And I encourage you to binge watch this film. It is, Mr. Bowie?
It is an inspiring film, a positive film, a film about decolonization, a film about the resurgence, I think, of Indigenous people. And that was I think when we had a premiere in Yellowknife, the very first time we showed the film, Jim Antoine, who was a Dene chief and a former premier of the Northwest Territories, afterwards he came up and he said, "This is very good, and I think it contributes to the resurgence of Indigenous people here and around the world, and that Indigenous people are going to be able to connect with this film." And so I think that's proven to be true, and I couldn't be happier.
So everyone out there, thank you for joining us today, and visit rednationff.com and watch River of Forgiveness. Nahanni? Nahanni, River of Forgiveness.
That's it.
And please forgive the pronunciation, but Nahanni, River of Forgiveness. Binge watch, tell all your friends. Red Nation FF. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Indigenous Filmmakers Lounge.
Thank you.
See you next time. Toksha.
Mhm.